Hello, friends. Hello and welcome again to the third Men in Cricket podcast. We are back after a bit of a break. The last show we did was on the World Test Championship final, and the side from New Zealand were the winners of the World Test Championship and deservingly won the trophy. And here we are looking ahead to another uh, cricketing calendar ahead with lots of great series in store for the rest of this year and also the new cycle of the World Test Championship about to begin, which will go on from 2021 to 2023. I've got my friend Ravi uh, here with me to give us some inputs, and in this particular episode, we will just be reviewing the just concluded India tour of Sri Lanka, where India played the three one-day internationals and three T20 internationals, and they were obviously playing with a virtual second string team against the Lankans in their own den. And so we'll just go through how they made a good fist of it and what were the positives that we could draw out from that tour for Team India and what are the bases where we can improve and how many options has this tour presented us with going into that all important World T20 starting in the UAE in a couple of months' time. So, hello and welcome, Ravi. How are you doing?
All good, Conway, and good to be back. Good to be recording a episode after probably good amount of time. Of course, schedules for time, everything had to permit us, and then of course here we are. So naturally, as you rightly mentioned, I think there was a lot of cricketing action in between, not just in terms of India tour of Sri Lanka, but with the 100 kicking off, Pakistan playing a very lovely T20 series and a ODI series in England, and of course Australia have going through some action in term in West Indies as well. uh, of course, well, what I thought is we should be discussing the India tour of Sri Lanka, and also before we even probably start the discussion, it's important to kind of keep in mind the fact that BCCI has accommodated this tour only to probably help Sri Lanka in terms of their financial you know s- uh, position probably that they're in, and just to probably pull them off from few debts that they have taken, and accordingly also it's important to give that very action that our Indian young team also deserves. So there's one A team probably with good 2022 people, 22 players who are right there in England playing their county games, or if not county, at least the practice and warm-up games. And at the same time, parallelly, there is another 20 member squad in Sri Lanka really fighting it out. So uh, so the tour itself didn't really start on a great note with respect to the COVID cases in the Sri Lanka camp, since they were uh, back from England, and of course they had certain amount of woes with the Dickwella and a couple of other players, out of violating the bio bubble norms in England, and hence were pretty much out of the contention here. Nonetheless, what necessarily happened right before the start of the series was that Sri Lanka were definitely looking, uh, if not a better team, at least they didn't lose. They didn't. They were. It was not at least a team C or a team D, because they did have their key players who we thought would be doing much better. But of course, they did have to give some amount of new caps to a couple of new debutants as well. But nonetheless, at least with respect to the ODI series, what we see was that the bowling, or the bowlers, while they did their bit, it didn't necessarily mean that bowlers themselves really won the game for any of the team for that matter, because in the first ODI we've seen Sri Lanka score a decent 264, 265, which was quite okay on that pitch. And then in India, adopting a new strategy wherein they go all guns, and then uh, just cruise through the Sri Lanka bowling attack, and then Shikhar leading from the front, Ishan Kishan scoring very well, and then Surya Kumar Yadav finishing it for us. I think the best game of the entire series was the second ODI, wherein Rahul Chahar did really well. Of course, he did bag the brownie points probably by doing well with the bat and leading us to the victory. But what needs to be spoken in that very game is definitely our strategy with respect to how we approach the chase. It was pretty much the same total to what we were chasing, but what necessarily happened was the run rate was always in check. In fact, we've seen England doing it because they bat deep, but India doing it right from the go start, and then that because that really allowed Krunal and Rahul Chahar to actually stabilize the innings and then take their own sweet time and then finish it well. Because Rahul at one point in time was about 1 of 16 or 1 of 17, and then eventually scored a very beautiful 69 with Bhuvi at the other end. And of course, in that very game too, we did see a good solid anchor kind of an innings till towards the end. I mean, and then also Krunal Pandya did score. He stuck around and he did score a very important 30 odd, if I'm not wrong with that. Third ODI was one game wherein batting definitely disappointed us. At one stage, we were at a healthy 179 for four situation, and then eventually, what happened was it was I mean, I won't say it was an amazing bowling performance at least, but Indian batters should have done much better out there. And then, of course, we ended up getting bowled out to 224, 225, and then Sri Lanka successfully, ensuring that they could have they chase the same. So nonetheless, I mean, it's a team that has already won the series. So we did see a couple of new players also in the team. Nitish Rana did play that game. Similarly, Chetan Sakaria also got a game. So it was nice to see that to that extent. Uh, Coming to the T20s, right? I mean, it was an amazing first T20. Sky and Shikhar really played well, and they scored an awesome. We were we scored a very healthy 164, which was enough probably to defend. And then Bhuvi, good to see him back again, and he picked up 4 wickets for about 20 odd runs, and it was quite nice to see as a Sunrisers Hyderabad fan as well. And then it all started falling apart in terms of the series. Krunal Pandya testing positive, and then us ending up giving caps to Ruturaj Gaikwad, Sakaria, Nitish Rana as well, Varun Chakravarti. After his fitness was, he finally gets to play a game, and also Devdutt Padikkal playing. So it was all very nice to see. But nonetheless, I really expected Sanju Samsons to step up and do well, considering the hype all around him, considering the backing that he gets from various quarters in terms of cricketing circles or political circles or whatnot. But he again failed to actually live up to the expectation, and he had to be that senior player or probably the more experienced player, considering he's around for some time. But he did not really do well as expected, and then of course we end up losing the series as well. But what was important after the second T20, which was quite a close game, wherein one single six still decided the game. India gave a tough fight, but what was important there was to probably conclude the series and get back home perhaps. And then I think BCC has done a great job, and our bench strength was tested. Navdeep Saini playing as a batsman was a joke as well. Bhuvi coming at 4 down. It was all happening in Sri Lanka. But yeah, of course, the priority was to finish the series, not necessarily to win it, and at least the T20 part, because I'm pretty sure had we had a couple of players who were not really out due to isolation, I think we would have seen it through far more easily. But nonetheless, I mean, it was important to keep this in mind. And all in all, it was a series wherein it tested our bench strength. It also introduced Rahul Dravid to the main team cricketing scene, and then of course the internet going gaga over how he kind of approached the series, and his dedication, his commitment was all seen to be. And kudos to Shikhar and Rahul for actually putting this up, and for winning the ODI series, and of course putting up a great fight in the T20 series too. So I'll say that's pretty much it in terms of how the series went. Uh, yeah, so nothing much, at least. More in terms of which player to look out and which player no, did really disappoint. I think we discussed about Sanju Samson. The other player I particularly was disappointed was with Hardik Pandya. Uh, Considering even his ODI series was not inspiring, and also the one T20 that he has played, not necessarily has done much. Uh, Mainly disappointed with Hardik because we are looking at a situation wherein we are seeing him to be that key bowler or probably key all rounder, at least with in terms of the World T20 that's going to come very soon. But he had a very okay IPL 2021. It's we're yet to see what he's going to do in the coming second phase of IPL. But uh, as things stand, I don't think he'll walk into the playing 11 of India because his form is a concern, and maybe we'll look at a Deepak Chahar again probably, and then again also in Shardul Thakur as well. I'm really sorry if I because I think I mixed up on Rahul and Deepak. I'm not sure if I was clear on that, but yeah, I meant Deepak Chahar with his batting as well all throughout. I'm sorry for that. Uh, you know, Probably a mess up there, but nonetheless, the point still remains. So, Pawan bhai, I wanted to talk to you on this. Your three highlights of the game, perhaps, of probably the series, and then what next in terms of you know the World T20 squad, or the what do you think? Where are Sanju Samson and Hardik Pandya actually sitting? Because rest everyone have made a decent point to make.
Yeah, thanks for that comprehensive review, Ravi, of the ODI and the T20 series. And I echo your thoughts on that, that we have made a good list of delivering performances, and some players have put their case very strong as far as the World T20 is concerned. And I think if you see the likes of somebody like a Prithvi Shaw, Ishan Kishan, or Surya Kumar Yadav, they were more or less auditioning for the World T20 squad. And I think when the next generation of these players come into the Indian ODI squad, you will see such an approach for sure. The same approach that somebody like an England has taken over the last 5 or 6 years, where they go uh, hell for leather right from the outset, and they are willing to risk a loss using that kind of approach as well. Um, and as I mentioned, since they were wanting to audition themselves for the World T20, they were playing these ODIs with the mindset of a T20, and that's why you saw these scores being chased uh, within a record number of overs, at least in the first ODI. And even the third ODI, which Sri Lanka won by when they were chasing 230 odd, they won inside 40 overs. So that's the modern day one-day game where they are, you know, breaking up the first 40 overs into two T20 innings and uh, sort of approaching them in that manner. Having said that, I think the find of the tour again was Surya Kumar Yadav, and I absolutely don't see how you're going to keep a player like him outside the Indian team anymore, leave alone the World T20 squad. He just walks into at least my World T20 squad, and he should be, you know, uh, be given that role of a finisher in that squad for sure. Um, Prithvi Shaw and Ishan Kishan will need to develop some consistency. We all know that they have got the talent to succeed at the highest level. It's just bringing about that discipline and consistency in their game, and not showing the occasional brilliance once in a while. So once they achieve that consistency, I think they're going to be far more lethal and beneficial to Team India. I do not see both of them making it to the World T20 spot, but one of them for sure. And who knows, they might want to risk somebody like an Ishan Kishan as a backup wicketkeeper. Although India also have in KL Rahul as the backup wicket keeping option. Shikhar Dhawan was very good with the bat. I mean, one day is his most preferred format, and that is no hidden secret. Uh, uh, he played absolutely wonderfully in that first ODI as well, and he would have liked to, convert some of his other starts into big sports as well. But nevertheless, he was also captaining the team for the first time and made a good fist of it. Particularly disappointed with the likes of Sanju Samson and Manish Pandey across the ODI series. Manish Pandey during the one day series and Sanju Samson during the T20 series. It's difficult to see Manish Pandey getting a longer rope than this with all these youngsters coming in and the competition for spots being even more fierce than before. To be fair to Manish, he has not been given a consistent run at a particular number in this Indian team over a period of time. And many things were expected out of him after he won a game single-handedly for us in Sydney, in Australia, 4 or 5 years ago when he scored his maiden century. But if you see both sides of the story, yes, he was not given many chances consistently, but whatever he has got, he's not made use of that as well. And such is a competition for spots in the current Indian setup that if you don't make use of the limited opportunities, then uh, selectors are not going to come back to you sooner. Uh, and Sanju Samson as well, all the hype and promise has not translated into performances. It was a golden opportunity for him, especially in the T20 format, to stake his claim and put his uh, name in the ring for the World T20 sports selection. Again, flashes of brilliance and lack of consistency is the name of the game as far as he's concerned. So I think all these youngsters, Shaw, Kishan, and Sanju would do well to delve further into the repertoire of skills that somebody like Rahul Dravid has, who was an epitome of consistency, and I'm sure he must have already had talks and sessions with these boys on what they need to do to go that extra step and develop a fruitful career for Team India, because all of them are the future. There's absolutely no doubt about that. When it comes to the Pandya brothers, again, I think it's a curious case of Hardik Pandya. I think he's been accorded the prima donna treatment uh, by the team management and the belief that someone like Virat Kohli has in his abilities. I think the same yardstick has not been used for all the players, and it's been separately used for Hardik Pandya. And there's only this mindset that we don't have a player of all-round ability in India other than him. Well, if we're going to give chances to the likes of Deepak Chahar, Shardul Thakur, as you mentioned, or Washington Sundar for that matter, who knows, they might deliver more consistently. And even more curious has been his lack of bowling ability and the question mark over his fitness levels. It's been more than 2 years since he underwent that surgery, and still he has not returned to full bowling fitness, which is a cause of concern. And there can only be two things: that either he has not managed his post-surgery recuperation properly, which is again throwing up question marks on the medical team or the Indian team, uh, or he is hiding some kind of an injury. And we are known to have players playing for India who hide their injuries for the lack of security that they believe is there in the Indian setup, uh, and they think that out of sight is out of mind as far as selectors are concerned, which has changed over a period of time, but they still continue to do so. So unless and until he bowls, he's not going to be of much use, at least in the one-day format. In the T20 format, he would still make it to the squad on the sheer ability with the bat. I see him being part of the World T20 squad as well, but bowling those crucial overs as a sixth bowling option is going to be even more vital because you can't enter into a T20 game nowadays with just five bowling options up to 60. Uh, Kunal Pandey also had a mixed kind of a series, although his good patches with both bat and ball. There's great amount of competition, and that's spinning all around the slot with Pavandeep and head and shoulders above the rest, not only in India but in the world, followed by the likes of Akshar Patel also there. So I don't see if we are going to go on with two left-arm spinners in our T20 squad. It was nice to see our spearhead Bhuvaneswar back in action and giving a good account of himself. So I'm pretty much sure that he's going to be in that World T20 squad. Because if there's one thing that the current team attack lacks, that is a bowler who is out and out, sort of a swing bowler, and that's what proved to be a Achilles heel in the World Test Championship final as well. So he's someone who can swing the ball in the air, irrespective of the conditions. So it's nice to see him get back to the group. All he has to do is keep himself fit. And Deepak Chahar was a revelation. We all know he's possibly in the same mold as Bhuvaneswar in the bowling department, but he seems to be very, very handy with the bat as well. And he gave a lot of credit to Rahul Dravid for upskilling his batting abilities and Dravid showing a lot of trust in his batting abilities as well. So all in all, I would say a good tour for India. And of course, as you mentioned, that once we had 7 or 8 players sidelined from even the second string side, it was just a question mark of whether we're going to finish the series or cancel it. But it was very good on part of the Indian team and the PCA to go ahead and finish the series no matter what, which would have helped the Lankan board financially after the crisis that they were going through. And it was great to see Sri Lankan team also rejoice. Uh, Although they also knew that the victory had come against a defeated Indian side, but such has been the dearth of success in the recent cricketing history that any series victory would be taken with both the hands by them. Uh, and they also had some very, very good young players in the series. Anushka Fernando is one for the future. I saw him batting in Test matches in South Africa a couple of years ago when they won their first series over there. And at that point of time, I had predicted that he would be the future of Sri Lankan batting. I don't know where did he disappear after that, but himself and the likes of Karunaratne uh, and all these guys, Minoka, Manupacha, all very talented. You want to see a strong Sri Lankan side. There's no point watching world cricket with just 2 or 3 teams going against each other and vying for those top slots. You want a strong Sri Lankan side, and they have always produced uh, great talents, raw talents, unconventional talents with both bat and ball. So hopefully, there is less political interference going forward and some sane voices take over the cricketing board and the coaching setup as well. Hopefully, the likes of Sangakkara and Jayawardene, Aravinda De Silva, Jayasuriya, all these guys get to mentor the youngsters and bring them up to speed. And in the next 2 or 3 years, they develop a good solid core of these players because the talent is there, just that they need to be given proper direction. And we'll once again see the Sri Lankan team, uh, giving a tough fight to all their opponents. All in all, a good series and much to look forward to as far as India is concerned, especially in the T20 stage with the World Cup around the corner.
Certainly, yes. Actually, even with respect to how a player like Vanindu Hasaranga is and how important he is across various T20 formats will be seen in the coming years. The way he can he's a nice batsman, also can bowl well. Also, I've been told that as Adam Zampa's replacement, RCB is actually looking at Vanindu Hasaranga as a valid as a probable replacement, and it makes sense even more because the games are in UAE, wherein spin plays a bigger role. And coming to Sri Lanka's woes, it's in that phase wherein the board is extremely depleted with their financial resources, and we'll see more and more experienced stars probably pulling out of their international circuits. Isuru Udana has retired from all forms of international cricket apparently, and I think the focus probably from him, I mean, at least on his side, he's about 32, 33, wherein the focus now will be to milk the most in the next 3 years, play across various T20 leagues and make enough money so that you know it's kind of a financially stable life for the next few years or so. And of course, apples and oranges here in terms of how BCCI and Sri Lanka board, though they were very closely competent teams back in late 90s or even till probably 2014 or so, in fact, for that matter. But nonetheless, it's a good, healthy performing Sri Lanka team is very important, and I hope we'll soon see some stars emerging, and then accordingly them giving every other team a tough fight as well. So I think one last question that I wanted to ask you. I know it's a bit too early to probably ask you this question, Tanvaya, but one thing I wanted to understand from your side was the might of Rahul Dravid, of course, is definitely in contention to be the next. But when is a very valid question. Uh, uh, you know, what are we looking at as in World T20 this year in UAE, or next year we have a World T20 in Australia, and then subsequently a World Cup in India. So when are we actually looking at Rahul Dravid taking over everything? What's your view? And also you can highlight a couple of points in uh, you know because I don't think Ravi Shastri has done anything terribly wrong. In fact, probably he's done only good. So how is this conflict going to be probably approached, say, by BCCI or even everyone else, even the captain for that matter, because fans are desperate, and if this time around Virat fails to even win in the final, right, it's all going to be ban Virat and ban Ravi Shastri all the way again.
Yeah, it's a very interesting scenario, and that's why everybody is looking at the World T20 with that much interest. Although the Indian team would have liked the World Cup to be held in India, but such are the circumstances that the next best option at this point of time is the UAE. And with respect to Rahul Dravid, it I believe is not a question of when he's going to become the head coach of the Indian team, but if he wants to become the head coach of the Indian team with the current leadership in place. And when I say current leadership, it only points out to one man who calls the shots, that is the captain Virat Kohli. And the heat is pretty much on Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri um, because we have failed to deliver a world title so far under their reign. And it's not a one-off. It's three tournaments now that we have crumbled in the knockout stages. Uh, 2017 Champions Trophy final, 2019 One Day World Cup semi-final, and the World Test Championship final now. So, if you want to be remembered as a great team, then you got to have world titles added under your belt. What was reminiscent of the great teams of the past, especially the West Indies of the 80s, 90s, and then the Australians in the new millennium was they won test matches pretty much all across the globe, but they are also added world titles under their belt. West Indies won in 75, 79, Australia 99, 2003, 2007, Champions Trophy, and whatnot. So um, they have to deliver a world title for sure, and unfortunately, that is the yardstick that most of the teams and captains in India are at least judged by. And when it comes to Test cricket as well, we are yet to win a series in England, South Africa, and New Zealand. So they did tremendously well to win back-to-back series in Australia, and those will go down as some of the greatest achievements in the history of Indian Test cricket. But they have vociferously mentioned that they are a different team from the past generations, and if they have to literally walk the talk, then win in conditions that they have not done so far. And that's why this upcoming test series against England and then later on against South Africa later this year will be uh, a watershed moment for them. But having said that, Ravi Shastri's contract ends at the end of this upcoming World T20. And then you're looking at 1.5 years to go before the 2023 World Cup in India. And of course, you've got between these two tournaments another World T20 series based in Australia. Uh, Point is uh, twofold. Number one, if Virat Kohli fails to deliver the trophy in the upcoming T20 World Cup, does the BCCI have the uh, wherewithal or the gumption to take the fall and appoint somebody else or somebody like Rohit Sharma as at least the T20 captain and the one day captain, I would say. So have one captain for the white ball format and leave Virat as the test captain for now. And I believe that it will have to come from the top brass of the BCCI, and by that I only mean Saurav Ganguly, and he has the stature and the ability to take the good decision because nobody is above the country and the team. Uh, you have had a fair chance as a captain, but if you fail to deliver in current situations, so be it, and you pass on the baton to somebody else. And I'm pretty much sure that if that change happens, you can also see the likes of Rahul Dravid taking up that role of an India head coach because he does not want to be in a situation where it is once bitten and twice shy. Because if you remember when Ravi Shastri came into the Indian setup, um, when the COA was handling the BCCI, there was talk of Zahir Khan being the bowling consultant and Rahul Dravid being the batting consultant, and that was um, objected to by both Shastri and Kohli. Uh, Shastri for obvious reasons because you do not want to have players who have a greater stature than the head coach in the team environment, and then the players would obviously be listening more to them. That's why Shastri always preferred, the likes of Bharat Arun, Sridhar, and someone like a Vikram Rathore or Sanjay Bankar in his team, who are less pedigreed than Shastri as far as their international careers are concerned. Um, yeah, so I'm pretty much sure that if that decision is taken uh, of handing over the white ball captaincy responsibilities to say something like a Rohit Sharma, then you might see a completely new coaching setup coming in, and I don't see why somebody like Rohit Sharma would not want to work with Rahul Dravid and his team. Every head coach would get his own assistant coaches, bowling coaches, fielding coaches, so be it. So, and then you'll have a situation of Virat Kohli trying to work out with Rahul Dravid when it comes to Test cricket, and he will have to work out. You can't be calling the shots in every matter going forward. Uh, every Indian captain has had tremendous amount of power, but it has gone to certain extremes for Virat Kohli, and because there was a lull in between the management of the BCCI, and you had a certain toothless body called the COA in there, so he made the most of that. And of course, Rahul Dravid would not want to end up in a situation where he would be treated in the same manner as somebody like an Anil Kumble would be treated. Uh, he would just have his thought that if uh, Jumbo could be treated like that, who is possibly the greatest match winner that India has ever produced in Test cricket, then what can be made of me? And he's a man of great self-respect, as Rahul Dravid, so he would want an amicable atmosphere there in a dressing room, uh, or otherwise, you know, he would he would be best left with nurturing our feeder players at the A team and the under 19. He and Paras Mahambre and team have done a sterling job in the last 5 or 6 years, and we all know about that. results are attested to them. So uh, I believe, again, as I mentioned, it's a question of not when, but if he wants to become a coach, and if we fail to deliver in the World T20. If he won the if he won the World T20 2 months down the line, then this topic is not up for discussion. Shastri and Co would get the extension easily until the 2023 World Cup, which is to be held in. Either ways, you want good results for the Indian team, irrespective of who is there in charge. So you want to see good consistent cricket, and uh, somehow I feel that they have started to become the new called jokers or in the ICC events and have taken over the mantle from South Africa in the last 7 or 8 years. So they will be desperate to tag the top and win those crucial matches, uh, win tournaments again to give cheer and a lot of smiles to millions of supporters.
Well, yes, certainly. And, I think in one of our podcasts a couple of months ago, or probably the 3 to 4 months ago, where we were discussing that, captain is as good as his team. Similarly, even now, that would also apply to probably a change that we are looking at in terms of if Virat Kohli will be replaced or no. And because the alternative is Rohit Sharma, and the success that he has achieved with Mumbai Indians is largely attributed to the bench. But I think there is some amount of genuine leadership also that kind of inspires people and allows players to play well. So I think at this point in time, what the point I wanted to convey is the question is not necessarily about if Virat is a good captain or no, or the fanboys engaging on Twitter, here and there. But it's about change. It's about that change that probably when Dhoni wanted to do, despite giving us all the successes that he did. Uh, in 2016 he wanted to say, okay, I'm 35 now, let me just I've already captained India a couple of World Cups, lot of World T20s, and I think it's time to just move on and play as a player. And I think it's important for Virat also to acknowledge that in case there is no successes that are achieved under him. uh, eh, so that's where I look at it, and also we have to keep in mind that Rohit also is a 34, 35-year-old guy. Um, to 2023 is long way ahead. I'll not necessarily think much well in ahead, but at least the World T20 in Australia is something that he would look forward to captain, and it would be a dream to see the Virat the batsman and Rohit the captain, and probably also replicate the magic or even the luck factor perhaps that he kind of created where in at MI, and considering their supremacy, and probably there are I did for some reason it feels players are a lot more uh, you know uh, active, or probably more happy to be under a leader like Rohit. So that's my two takes, and of course there is a long discussion, and I'm sure we'll have far more if not debates, at least discussions on how what should be the Indian future in terms of Virat versus Kohli, Virat versus Rohit, and what's going to happen going forward as well. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today. Perhaps any other final points from your side, Ponbaya?
Yeah, I think that's it from my side, Ravi. I think we had a good discussion about the Sri Lankan tour and what to look forward to.
Cheers. So, yeah, of course, thanks for your time, Pawanbhai, and of course, we should be again coming up with another episode. This time, we'll be covering the India Tour of England Test Series, the much-awaited Test Series, and let's see what's in store for that as well. Thanks for your time, Pawanbhai. Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Of course, thanks for the support so far.
Thank you, Ravi. And thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Cheers.